I think the reason as well why a lot of people are adopting that style, it stems from the fact that, especially in the 2020s era, the Gen Z, Gen Z generation, this decade, there hasn't really been a unique or an identity for this decade. I mean, like
Right.
there is, but there isn't. And I think it's escapism, that escapist element and that nostalgia element. If you think about, we in the pandemic, people couldn't do certain things. There was all this tragedy going on. The internet was that outlet for a lot of people. I think people wanted to go back to that time. You have decades, and some of people may have that rose tinted lens and go, oh, this decade was better and stuff like that. I think it's the case of you're going back to a decade that you weren't necessarily a part of, but it's like an idealization of what you think that was. And I think,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think that's what's going on right now. Technology was limited, but you can see now with the aesthetics, they imitate that, but that's just how it was back then. 3D wasn't as powerful as it is now, but you can see with the design and how things are structured, it tends to look tacky, right?
Yeah.
Kitschy a bit, but it's part of the, I guess, look. It's inspired by the decade, but it's not of the decade. But I just think it's that case of nostalgia and wanting to go back to a time that didn't exist. Happens all the time, I think. We have social media and this whole thing of micro genres and trends. It's just so weird to me, especially in fashion, because they take movements that had substance, like let's say punk era, and then they'll just go on and, I guess, dress in the style, but it's just fashion. It's not really like a statement or anything like that. They had reason to back then because it was against the establishment.
Yeah.
So all these things, right? It just plays into that. I feel like that's what's going on right now. I think that's why we don't really have, I guess, moments like that anymore, because everything just going so quickly with the internet and things changing all the time and so much going on at the same time.
Yeah. No, I think you summed it up nicely. It's like escapism. I think that would be a good word to use to crown this era. But I completely agree. When we go through the decades, you're right. Like when you look at the 80s or the 70s, it's a lifestyle. So there's a purpose behind why they're dressing the way they are. And then you move up into the 2000s, it's like, okay, we kind of see why there would be that Y2K type of aesthetic. This is supposed to be like the future, essentially. So it's like, okay, I
Yeah,
understand that. Yeah,
21st century,
right. Then you get into like the 2010s, and that's when things start to get a bit hazy. And then now, into the 2020s or whatever have you, it's like, okay, now things is like a void. So yeah, escapism, though, I think that's a good word for it, actually, though. Yeah.
yeah. No one would think that, this would happen, right? The pandemic and COVID-19 or whatever, but it just happened and lost decade, kind of, right? In a way,
Yeah, yeah.
just altered everything and it's just altered how humans just communicate. It's just messed up, right? Like, there's just
Mm,
certain things that have just been, I guess you could say, normalized that shouldn't be normal, but because it's that weight of helplessness and doubt and stuff like that. But yeah, I kind of feel like it's like a lost decade in a weird way because of how everything just panned out. It's crazy.
yeah. No, I completely agree.
It's not even the end of the decade yet, but feels
Yeah,
like it.
yeah. No, absolutely. No, no, yeah, that's a great topic though. Shoot, like even for the future, like something that we could kind of dive into a bit more. When we have fragmented pixels on, the same thing, because she's like even younger than we are. And similar thing, right? Like every era has its niche or its shtick, so to speak, right? Like even the early 2000s, I'd say the early 2000s was real experimental, which is why it's real kookily. It's really, when you get into the 2020s, it's like a black hole. It's a void there. And that is a good question. What is the aesthetic for the 2020s and beyond? By 5 years, there should be a color. To create a style, you can have inspiration, but I always say, like, you gotta make sure the ingredients like flow well together, or else it's just a hodgepodge to throw up. And that's what the 2020s seem to be right now. I think that's kind of the issue today.